Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard, brought to you by our sponsor, The Great Game of Business. I'm Loren Feldman. I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the things we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hello, Loren. It is great to be here.
Great to have you here. Gene, you're always writing and talking about stuff.
Wait. You didn't say that this was sponsored by The Game of Business, Loren.
Gene, are you not listening to me? I most certainly did.
Did you say that? Did I miss you?
I did. You're not, once again, you're not paying attention to me, Gene.
I guess I'm not focused.
But I'm sure the nice folks at The Great Game of Business will appreciate us doing it again. We are, in fact, sponsored by The Great Game of Business.
So sorry that I didn't hear that. I was putting my notes in order. Carry on.
Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
Gene, you're always writing about stuff that matters to business owners. I want to start today with a story out of Montana, which we don't usually do. Last week, the governor of Montana signed legislation banning the use of TikTok effective January 1st. There's a lot of speculation that there will be more bans of TikTok, perhaps even at the federal level. I'm wondering what you think of this. Are we really going to ban an app that so many small businesses have come to depend upon?
Yeah, I absolutely disagree with doing that. I can't imagine. I mean, this seems like such a just a political stunt, to do this, and frankly, a political right-wing stunt, which is just silly. Obviously, everybody has so much concerns about China taking over. And owning TikTok, ostensibly or indirectly. And, there's some kind of a security issue or privacy issue. I don't see it. I don't get it. It's a hugely popular application. I think if the government wants to focus, or the government of Montana wants to focus on security, they should make sure that their servers are completely, protected from any Chinese people hacking them, rather than spending the time passing legislation on on a platform that so many people enjoy and use, and that so many, like you said, so many businesses take advantage of to not only advertise for prospective customers, but for prospective employees as well. So I don't listen. Do you go on TikTok, Loren? Are you on that or Instagram?
I am not.
Oh, either. Okay. So I am on Instagram, and frankly, everything that goes on TikTok eventually makes it onto Instagram too. And I don't post anything.
Although I hear from businesses that it doesn't have the same impact on Instagram, and that TikTok is a different animal and
different demographics, and different approach. It's all about audience. I mean, Instagram, I don't post anything, but I follow a number of very highly inappropriate accounts recommended by my kids, and I laugh and I laugh and I laugh, and then oftentimes I get ads served up to me frequently on Instagram, not only just from big companies but from small companies as well, and companies that are looking to sell their products and also to look for employees as well. I get recruiting ads on it too. So those platforms are a help for small businesses, and it's just annoying to me that they would be shut down by the government for an ostensible reason. I just think it's stupid.
Well, I think there may be legitimate concerns there, both about security and about the government of China owning the app and having access to our data and the potential for influence there. But a lot of those issues apply to all apps.
I've never really understood that whole concept of owning the data and having influence over people. So then China can feed me ads to get me to vote for a particular politician that they like. That's the concept there?
There have been some efforts in that direction, not necessarily from China, but from other places. I think it's something that bears watching. I don't claim to be an expert on it. I guess I'm not dismissing it as an issue, but it applies to all social media. And if you're concerned about privacy, you should be concerned about it on Twitter and Facebook and elsewhere. And I think we do need some regulation looking at that. But at this point, TikTok has become such a part of the environment. Sure. And to strip it away, I mean, the one thing that I think a lot of people don't fully appreciate about TikTok, it is that I think it's the easiest place to get started right now, to get discovered. Mm-hmm. So even if you haven't been building up a following the way you need to on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, you can go on there. And if you post something that people find valuable, it can go viral the first time you post something. That doesn't really happen on the other places very often. So, you read all the time about restaurants with a line around the block because they've posted something useful on TikTok.
There's an ice cream shop right around the corner from us, down here in Philly. It's like it's on 20th and Samsung, and the guy runs his business off of TikTok and Instagram. Frankly, I mean, it's a pop-up shop, and he announces what flavors he's going to have and when he's going to be open and all that. And then I walk by, there's like a line of millennials waiting for an overpriced ice cream cone, So he has a model that he follows, and he relies heavily on the guy's like he's doing bank, man. And he uses TikTok heavily for doing that. And if Pennsylvania passed a law that, forbid him from doing that, that would be a problem for him. And I think it's stupid.
Well, it is a good reminder that there is danger in being reliant on any one platform. That said, it's the business model for a lot of people. To just rip that away is kind of mind-boggling at this point. All right, next topic. The Wall Street Journal published a story last week about how the IRS is having trouble keeping up with the deluge of amended returns for small businesses claiming the Employee Retention Tax Credit, or ERTC. The IRS says it's trying to be careful because they are seeing a lot of fraud. I suspect that's the result that we've seen so much marketing aimed at small businesses, trying to get them to agencies wanting to be hired to help small businesses, promising, maybe too much and maybe charging too much. What does a small business owner need to know about this?
So first of all, every small business owner should find out if they're eligible for the Employee Retention Tax Credit. That's a given. I mean, I don't care what business you're in. If you were partially or fully shut down during much of COVID, I think it's the last 3 quarters of 2020, the first 3 quarters of 2021, and there are even exceptions to that. You might be eligible for this ginormous tax credit that you can get potentially by amending your payroll tax returns for the quarter that you were affected. To find out if you are eligible, do not respond to any emails or text messages or calls from all these firms that are out there telling you that you're due millions of dollars. Talk to your accountant and talk to your payroll service about the ERTC, the Employee Retention Tax Credit. Most good accountants and most good payroll services will determine if you're eligible, oftentimes for free for the most part. They should be able to find out just by asking some questions and looking at your data very quickly whether or not you'd be eligible. And if you are, then they'll go and they'll follow the process to file the amended return. If you're in the restaurant business or the retail business, it's like a no-brainer because you were probably shut down or locked down for a period of time during COVID. So you absolutely should be looking into this. And then as far as the IRS having their problems processing all of this, that's not your worry. I mean, the IRS is going to do what they're going to do. And if it takes a little bit longer to get the money, then so be it. But it is, it's yet another pandemic program, excuse me, that was started with good intentions. And did serve a really good purpose, but it is look at us. People are getting the money now, years after the pandemic. So it obviously I don't think that was intended, let alone all the havoc that it's giving to the IRS. So these are kinds of things for the next pandemic we'll just have to keep in mind.
Yeah, the fraud thing is interesting. I think, one of the things that that signals potential fraud is, we've all heard, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Except in this case, the credit was so amazing, so generous, that it really did sound too good to be true. But it was true. And I think that has left businesses exposed to these fraudsters that you were referring to, sending out, all the emails and all the texts trying to get people by promising even better returns than they could possibly have hoped for.
100%. I mean, don't be an idiot. You're getting like spam emails from people that are, saying that you have millions of dollars waiting for you. I mean, talk to your accountant and talk to your payroll company. That's all. And if for some reason your accountant doesn't do this, have your accountant recommend another accountant that specializes in the ERTC. But don't just respond to the emails and texts or whatever, marketing you're getting from these firms, because they are fraudulent, and some of them are, and they can really get you into trouble because they can file payroll tax amended returns. You can get the money in, and then honest to God, Loren, 5 years from now, suddenly you're getting audited by the IRS. Because it turns out you weren't eligible for the tax credit and you should be giving the money back.
One thing the journal article warned about is to be aware that it can take a while. The IRS is moving slowly. They recounted the story of one business that got their first check really quickly, thought the next two were going to come just as quickly, and made plans to spend that money, and then got in big trouble when the money didn't show up as quickly as they thought it would.
Right.
Next topic. You recently reported in The Hill that bankruptcies are skyrocketing. Is that big companies and small now?
It is. The numbers themselves are ticking up, rather significantly. This is the piece I just wrote in The Hill. It came out, I think, on Saturday, and it is it's not a surprise because now that a lot of the government funding is kind of running out, the economy in some industries is slower. Interest rates are higher. There are companies having a hard time dealing with refinancing and debt and whatever. That it is it's having its impact. So there's different sources that have reported this. The administrative offices of the U.S. Courts. Certain services that track bankruptcies or separate services, S&P Global, they all reported like higher levels of bankruptcies this year to date compared to last year to date. In some cases, as much as 24% higher. So it's a lot. So my contention is that it's only half the story, because I think there are a lot of small businesses out there that do shut their doors or have been shutting their doors for whatever reasons, and are doing so because and you don't hear about them. They don't go through the machinations of filing for bankruptcy, so therefore they're not
right.
They're just not part of the records, but they're out of business. The biggest piece of advice I have for everybody is that if you are in any kind of financial trouble, or you think that this could be impacting your business for whatever reason, just be aware that I think back in 2019, there was a new law passed called the Small Business Reorganization Act, which helps smaller companies file for reorganization under Chapter 11. It makes it much easier for those smaller companies to do that. And then that way they can, there's less paperwork, there's less legal fees, there's a quicker turnaround time. You don't have to have a whole committee of your creditors and all that kind of stuff. And therefore, you can file for bankruptcy and reorganize and get back into business less expensively and with less time. So if you do think you're heading into trouble, you should talk to a bankruptcy attorney and ask them about the Small Business Reorganization Act, because it is designed to help smaller companies.
What's different about it? What does it let you do?
It looks at like the level of debt. So I believe the numbers, I forget, it used to be like 7.5. If you owed less than $7.5 million of debts, you would qualify for the Small Business Reorganization Act. Then there are other factors as well. So it separates out big companies filing for Chapter 11 and small companies, and they're allowing small companies to sort of skirt some of the rules. Got it.
All right, last topic. You wrote last week about the looming default crisis. We also spoke about it last week on Dashboard, and you gave us some of the same good advice, both on Dashboard and in your article. Be careful if you have government contracts. Be aware of what could be coming, and also, if possible, try to hoard some cash. Here's my question: as we get closer, do you think our business is doing enough to make sure people in Congress understand how catastrophic this would be? When this happened a decade ago, there were big economic consequences, even though there was no actual default. Just getting close was difficult enough. What do you think?
It's such nonsense, all of this conversation going on. It frustrates so many people because it doesn't have to be. People really question what is the purpose of a debt ceiling anyway. It's a lot of political gamemanship, and as we head into into an election year, and frankly, even all the debt that we have, it is denominated in our currency, so it does give you a lot more options for dealing with debt. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Also, just as I think everybody listening to this probably understands, this money's already been spent. If there's certainly conversations to be had about the next budget. And those are serious talks, and that'll get sorted out. But this is about money that's already been spent.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I do agree with you, Lauren, that it has already been, in some cases has been spent. But, I last week alone, I was at 6 or 7 different clients. A couple of them actually do business with the federal government or indirectly with the federal government. They contract out to government contractors. And I asked them, like, are you like concerned? And neither of them were. They were like, nah, these projects have already been funded, so we're all good, So when you dig into it, you have to define what you mean by funded. Number one is, if they've been funded and the money has been, spent by the government, you've got it in your bank account and you're working on the contract, good for you. That's fine. But just bear in mind that if the Treasury Department has to, make some decisions to play some games with funding in order to make sure we don't default on debt and prioritize interest and principal payments and stop funding existing, contracts, they could well be doing that. So, and the clients that I spoke to last week weren't really aware of that. Like they didn't really think that that's a big issue or that's going to happen to them per se. I mean, I've got my contract with Lockheed Martin and they've always been good, and I don't know. I mean, if this goes on long enough, it would have that impact on businesses. And like you said, would have an enormous economic and financial impact. So, and yet to answer your question, I don't think businesses are putting the pressure on their congressman because I just don't think they believe, one, that it's really going to happen. And number two is that it really is something that's going to impact them. And whether or not they're being naive or not, that's another question,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a sense that it's never happened before. So it always goes down to the wire, and that's what will happen this time. And nobody would be foolish enough to throw us into default.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty crazy thing to happen and pretty much guarantee that Donald Trump gets elected again. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, I think people would just be so up in arms if it went to a stage where it literally hit them in their pocketbooks. You know what I mean?
Well, it's so catastrophic. I hesitate to get into the political ramifications. That's such a new world. Who knows which way that would fall, but it would be catastrophic. And again, the bad stuff can happen even if we just get close. That's what happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I don't think businesses are paying as much attention to it, I think, as they should be. And I don't think that because they don't think it's going to happen, to them. And, listen, in their defense, though, I do have to say, I mean, like both business owners I talked to are like guys my age. You know what I mean? Like they've been around the block. So I don't want to say they're like ignorant people. You know what I mean? They could be wrong.
Sure.
But,
well, also, I mean, this is business owners like to focus on things they can control. This seems way too big.
God, it's so true. It's so true. I used to, when I talked to industry groups, back 10 years ago, I mean, I remember talking to them during the Obama times and, about the debt, remember all the deficit conversations then and the national debt things, or whatever. And I would talk to them about, the impact that this could have. And everybody's eyes would just glaze over, I mean, because they're just like, whatever, what can I do? I'm just trying to freaking sell, widgets here. You know what I mean? So it only goes so far.
I guess we've been through so much the last few years to have a self-inflicted wound like this, even being threatened, just seems
crazy,
beyond the pale.
Yeah.
Are you going to write about it?
I'm not sure if I might be out of things to write about until something new happens.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So.
Well, I would encourage you to think about just making sure those in positions of authority know just how bad this would be if we even got close to it.
Fair enough.
Anything we should look for from you this week?
Yeah, I just finished a piece this morning just on the state of getting capital. Rohit, right, from Biz2 Credit.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, they his monthly report of loans getting approved is starting to get concerning. It's those numbers are going down and down, and I just reported 2 weeks ago that it's more falling in small businesses getting loan approval, and so I wrote about that. I talked to a few people that are out in the market, and we can talk about that next week.
Sounds good. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes, well, it doesn't sound good, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great.
It sounds good to talk to you about it.
Okay, good topic.
It's not great news. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, The Chicago Daily Herald, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. This episode was brought to you by... Who, Gene?
The game of business.
The great game of business.
Oh, the great
Gene,
game of business. Sorry. Okay.
which helps businesses use an open book management system to help build healthier companies. You can learn more at greatgame.com. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you so much, Loren. See you next week.
Have a great week, everyone.